Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric here with Iraq Veteran 8888. Today we're going to be talking about cleaning up your gun after you shot black powder through it. This may be a no-brainer to a lot of people, but some people don't get it right and they wind up having their firearm become a giant rust bucket because they don't properly care for their guns after shooting with black powder. There are a lot of things to consider. With smokeless powder, as long as you're not running some type of a corrosive primer, you can generally get away with not cleaning for a good long time, if not at all, depending on the amount of rounds you fire. With black powder, if you don't clean immediately, you're going to run into some bad juju, and you don't want to do that. So the simplest way to clean your black powder guns is basically to run like hot soapy water through the action, through the barrel. There's different ways you can accomplish that depending on the gun that you're using. We're going to go over some techniques for cleaning various things related to black powder. But also, if you're using a cartridge gun like this little German Cape gun here with a 16 gauge smoothbore on one side, and we got a 20 gauge paradox on one side, it uses a contained brass cartridge, okay? So when you're talking about a cartridge like this that has also been exposed to black powder residues, this cartridge has to be cleaned if it's going to be reused as well. So I'm going to go over some of the process of cleaning your brass in this video as well. So anything that comes in contact with black powder must be thoroughly cleaned, and we're going to go over that a little bit. So let's get after it. Okay, there's a couple of schools of thought when it comes to your cases. We're going to discuss cases first, and then we'll get on to cleaning some guns here in a minute. But we're going to go over everything black powder related in this video. A few ways you can do it. In this case, we've basically shot the cases and they're still covered in sooty residue, and we're going to deprime them and wash them down, clean them really good and everything like that. Another way you can do it is if you're going to go to the range and you're going to shoot a lot of cartridge-containing black powder, what you can do is just take yourself a gallon jug or whatever with some hot water and maybe and cut it with a little bit of vinegar, okay? And then immediately after you shoot the case, drop it in there, shake it around, and it'll immediately begin to get all of that crap off there, and that'll help with cleaning them up later. For the purposes of this video, basically they're really nasty and we need to clean them. So what we'll go through, I'm just going to basically deprime them. And what I've done is I've just pulled the decapping rod out of a Lee universal decapper, because obviously, you know, this won't fit up inside the Lee decapper. In fact, none of these will. Now, if you're running 4570 out of a trapdoor or whatever cartridge you're using, a 4570 will pass into a universal decapper, and you can use that if you wish. But you know, everything I run is all this gargantuan stuff. Now also, from a standpoint of what we're doing here, most of these rounds that we have in this tray are not going to be resized. So since they're basically just getting reprimed, cleaned, and then reloaded, all we have to do is just decap them. But prior to cleaning them, obviously, we just want to make sure that they are deprimed, because we want to be able to clean all the residue out from underneath as well. I'll get that in a second. So you see what we're doing here. We're going to go over, and basically the only difference is, instead of going to the range and getting all of this stuff cleaned up while we're at the range, we're just going to do it after the fact. And that way you guys can see how the water and vinegar mixture works. And then we'll go from there and we'll start cleaning some guns. All right, so basically I've got a clear milk jug that I just cut the top off right here. Actually, this is a tea jug, but gallon jug cut off. We're gonna run some hot water, a little bit of white vinegar. Oh yeah, that's some smelly stuff right there. That's like good old stank vinegar, buddy. Woo! All right, we can get a little bit of that in there. We're going to drop these cartridges in here. And it is crazy how well the vinegar cleans these cartridges. Now, when you're at the range and you drop them in there while they're still warm, it'll really come off there pretty quick. All right, so I'm going to cut the water off. Look at that. Okay. Oh yeah, I bet you won't drink a cup of that. And it's surprising how well it cleaned it, just that one go. I didn't scrub anything. All I did was just add a little vinegar in there. Get in there. You can buy this vinegar cheap in bulk. Okay. I mainly am doing this to demonstrate how well that vinegar works cleaning these cases. Okay. If you were to take a jug like this to the range with you, you could certainly just throw your brass in there as you shoot them. That's what I would highly recommend you do. But not bad. All right, so we're going to look at these cases after I dry them off, and then we'll get on to cleaning some guns here. That's your basic concept there. That's not bad. After just 2 rinses, coming out pretty clean. Not too bad there. We're going to go through and just rinse with some hot water to get all the residue from the vinegar off of there, and let's have a look and see how they look. So those cases cleaned up pretty decent. We're not quite out of the woods yet. It's great to be able to take like these swab bits here, just a giant Q-tip, and just kind of take them and get in there and swap the case out a little bit just to get any residual residue out of there. That's not bad. We'll go through and clean the primer pockets as well. But the big thing is just to get that hot water in there to neutralize all those black powder residues that are in there. You definitely don't want that going on. Those cleaned up pretty good. And then obviously, I mean, this is no different than any other piece of brass. You can also tumble them. If you want them to be shiny, just take yourself some corncob media and just tumble those up, and you can get them nice and shiny again if you want. But for caring for your brass, you know, if you don't clean your brass after exposure to black powder, it can weaken the brass. It'll discolor the brass, but the biggest thing is the weakening of the brass is something you definitely do not want to occur. You know, if you were to not wash this brass out really good and just reload it without cleaning it, those residues could weaken the brass, and you could eventually, if it sat for enough time and corroded badly enough, you could have a failure of the case. So that's just something to really consider there. You want to make sure you clean them really well. Okay guys, that's pretty cut and dry right there. We're going to move on and start cleaning on some guns. All right, we've gotten our cases cleaned up. We're going to move on to clean on some rifles a little bit. Now, in the case of what I'm working with, I've ran, you know, breech loading cartridge contained black powder. So this is a little bit different. If you're cleaning a muzzle loader, basically what you're going to do is to replace this part of it, you're going to pull the nipple, and there's usually some type of a drain plug that you can pull out as well. You're going to unscrew those, and you're going to pull the rifle out of its action so you can pour hot water down the barrel. That's the way I typically like to run it. In this case, we're running a double, so we're just going to pull the sling. Okay. That stud might be a little bit tight. It's okay. Here we go. We just got to separate the barrel from the action. All right, this is an under lever, so we're just going to open it up, pop the fore end. All right, and we can see that there's quite a bit of residue that's worked its way into the lower. We'll contend with that in a moment. For now, we're going to rinse off this barreled assembly. Let's do it. So this is where, you know, maybe a little dirt sink in your house or somewhere will come in handy just for rinsing these things off. If you have the luxury of being able to remove your barrel easily, go ahead and do that. If you're running a muzzle loader, you're going to need to pour the water down the barrel. But in this case, we're basically, you know, just going to take some hot tap water, and we're literally just going to rinse the barrels out just like this. Okay. Starting out, yep, see we got some nice residue coming out. It's just a bunch of black powder, soot, and all kind of mess. And it ain't a big deal to hose the thing down, because it's going to get dried off really good and it's going to get thoroughly oiled. The water is just the process that helps neutralize all the black powder component of your ammunition, and then we're going to follow up with essentially what is basically a thorough cleaning afterwards. So you're still going to clean the gun like you would normally clean it. It's just the big takeaway is running, you know, some form of water, hot soapy water. If you want to run hot soapy water, you can. You can just take a gallon jug or something to that effect, and you can just mix up a mixture of Simple Green and water, or you can use a little Ballistol and water if you want. You can run just Dawn dish detergent, Simple Green, whatever you wish, and then pour it down the barrel. These barrels cleaned up really nice with just some hot water. We did a pretty good bit of volume shooting through this old Frayer here, and it's holding up really good. We're going to go through and dry everything off with the air nozzle really well, and we're going to proceed to detail clean the lower, get as much of that residue off of the lower as we can. Anything that touches that black powder, guys, you have got to clean it with hot soapy water and get all that crap off there, okay? And always watch out for the stock. If you are going to pour water down the barrel of a muzzle loader that you're going to leave in a stock, it's okay to do it, but just make dang sure that you keep that water away from the stock so you don't mess up your stock. That's why I strongly recommend removing the action from the stock if you're running a standard front stuffer. All right, let's go back to the drawing board here. All right, we've rinsed the barreled assembly here out with some good hot water. I actually cleaned it pretty dang good. I'm looking down the barrel right now. We don't have any leading or any fouling left in the barrel. So the hot water did its job, but we are going to follow up with a couple of patches. And what I do is I just use, especially since this is such a big bore gun, I'm just going to use a wore out shotgun brush. And what I do is I'm just going to take a patch and just place it over the brush, kind of like that, so it can grab. And remember earlier we were talking about Ballistol. We're going to go ahead and just treat it with Ballistol. Now, the thing about Ballistol that's nice is that it's safe on wood and it's also safe on leather. So that's something to consider. All right, we're just going to run this patch through here. And after that hot water rinse, let's see what comes out the other end. Okay, that's not too bad. All right. That's after a hot water rinse, and that's after many, many, many rounds of black powder. Now, granted, we were cleaning in between every shot earlier when we were shooting, but there's still a lot of that residual powder that winds up in the barrel that no matter what you do, it just winds up there until you do a thorough cleaning. We didn't shoot the shotgun side much, but I don't expect a whole lot there. All right, that's just a patch of Ballistol. It brought out a good bit of residue. Let's run a clean patch through and just see how the barrel looks. Now, if you're cleaning a Martini Henry, then obviously you just rinse water down through it, which we are going to be cleaning the Martini here in a minute. If you're cleaning a standard muzzle loader, obviously just make sure that the barrel is good and dry, and then follow up with normal cleaning techniques, okay? Patches, brushes. You don't even really have to worry about solvent with black powder if you don't want to. If you're running some type of an inline muzzle loader, like a modern muzzle loader, and you're running some sort of a jacketed projectile, then yeah, you could follow up with the copper solvent if you need to, but you shouldn't really have to do that. Most black powder guns use some form of lead projectile, so the only two things you really have to worry about are fouling and any potential leading. All right, so let's take our barrels and look. Oh, those are gorgeous. For a 100-year-old gun, actually over 100 years old, those barrels are nice. I do have one ding in the barrel, but that's not the barrel itself being bad. That's just a little ding that probably was there from a long time ago. Other than a little bit of old scattering pitting that's probably been there for a good minute, the bores are in great shape. So what we would do at this point, we haven't cleaned the lower yet. We're going to move on to that in a second. But what I like to do is just take either a patch or a rag, okay? And if I'm going to store the gun for a good while, I'll grab a little bit of LPS3. This stuff is pretty gnarly, all right? It doesn't take much, maybe about that much on a cloth. It's kind of waxy, okay? And we're just going to coat this entire barreled action down with LPS3. That's going to give a nice kind of waxy layer on the outside of the firearm to prevent any after corrosion. We've obviously made sure that it's good and dry from earlier because we did get water on it. Okay. You know, just getting in there and making sure we got every little bit of the water out of there. We blew it out really good with the air nozzle, okay, just to make sure we're good. And sometimes what I'll do is just kind of do a Q-tip test. So I'll get in here. See, there's a little bit of residual. Take a little bit of ballistol. Get into all these little cracks and crevices. All these little spots, okay? The white glove test, guys. Just like the military does. Oh, you think your gun's clean? Hang on. Get in here. Tiny bit of fouling. But you want that all out of there. Again, take a little ballistol. Get in there and hit every little spot. And that ballistol also serves as a pretty dang respectable little lubricant too. So leaving a little bit of residual ballistol behind is not a big deal. Again, getting into the little crevices, let's have a look. Better, okay? Not so bad. That's acceptable. And then everything, obviously before we assemble the whole gun, we'll do a once over with LPS3, but this is nice and clean. Not a single thing to worry about. That turned out gorgeous. So we're gonna set this to the side somewhere safe, okay? And we're going to go ahead and have a look at the lower. All right, so having a look here, we do have a lot of black powder residue that's found its way down into the action. So this is one of those moments where you have to decide, okay, am I going to pull the firing pins and clean underneath and all this stuff? Am I going to try to strip this thing down to the smallest piece? I think a lot of that really depends on, you know, for a few things. One, the value of the piece. You know, if it's a really, really expensive gun, which I'm not going to lie, this one probably wouldn't be considered a cheap gun by any stretch of the imagination, but it's just like any other type of cleaning, guys. Get in there and wipe down anything that you see that could have been in contact with the black powder. I've got a rag here that's soaked with LPS3. All right. I've got a couple little crevices and things. I've got a little bit of powder built up there on the face here of the action. It's not too terrible at all. We'll get in here with one of these big Q-tips, some of these kind of hard to reach spots. And clean some of this residue out. We do not want that residue sitting around and causing any issues, okay? We've actually got a good bit of residue that's found its way into this spot here. We can take the stick end and we can just scrape some of that residue away, just like this, okay? It's not going to be an issue at all. Take a little bit of compressed air if you want and blow some ballistol around in there. You know, getting a little bit of ballistol in there is not going to be a big deal. Because remember, this ballistol is safe on wood and it's safe on leather, and all of which are things that these old guns definitely have in strides, right? Is leather, wood, this is cape horn, okay? That's definitely something to consider. Guys, I hope that y'all have seen a little bit of common sense in this video. I mean, black powder is definitely nothing to be scared of. It's not a big deal. It's fun to shoot. And it really can be a very, very rewarding aspect of the shooting sports, okay? That's cleaned up very nicely. We are going to take a couple of small Q-tips again and do our swab test. If in doubt, just take a swab. And also, these are slightly smaller swabs that can get into some of these smaller areas. And we're going to get in here and just make sure we got all this crap out of here. See? Still a little bit to contend with. Guys, treat it like the white glove test. All right? If it's a nice gun, if it's an heirloom gun, and you want to make sure you get every little bit of residue, break out the white gloves in the form of a Q-tip. Okay? It's just like trying to pass inspection in the military. It's the same type of thing you're dealing with this. You're passing your own inspection. See? There's still grime on that. So we're going to keep rubbing until we don't find anything. All right? And that's just really, you got to be anal about black powder. See, there's a little bit of scotch of fouling that we pulled out. That's not good. You want to get rid of all you can. And then what I do is just same thing. Pass in a little bit of ballistol on some of the moving parts. Blow it out. All right. So on these hammers, we'll pull them back. You want to get in there and wipe everything you possibly can get to. If you had a cartridge rupture or anything like that, a ruptured round or anything, and you think that any gas might have found its way back into these firing pin recesses, and that's probably something where you want to take your wrench and pull these firing pins and clean in there really good. I myself am not overly worried about it. That one's actually a little bit loose. We'll get that one tightened up. But in terms of cleaning and general maintenance, that's pointing you in a pretty valid direction there. Guys, obviously anything that the black powder residues have come into contact with that are metal, you want to surely remove all of that, and you want to clean the bore really well. So at this point, I think the gun is definitely clean for my standards, okay, for what I expect to see. Our firing pins have got free movement. And granted, that one's maybe just a tiny bit loose. We'll get that tightened up later. You know, sometimes they'll work loose from shooting. That's not bad. So something else we're going to do. Now, I normally will use a little bit of the Renaissance wax. I've got a little bit of Howard's here. This is just, you know, over-the-counter basic furniture wax you can find, you know, at any major store. We're going to take just a little bit of Howard's to put on the stock to help protect it a little bit. Not going to hurt a dang thing. You could also use a bit of ballistol if you wish. That's up to you. But we're just going to throw a little bit of Howard's on here, wax on, wax off, and that's going to help protect the stock from any of the elements. You know, help keep some of those little raindrops off of it. Earlier we were shooting in some light rain, and it started to come down on us, so we want to make sure that we wipe down the stock and protect it from any potential moisture damage or anything like that. And obviously you're inspecting your gun to look for splits and cracks and any kind of odd things that might be popping up. She looks pretty good, guys. So at this point we'll basically just take the rifle and put some LPS3 all over all of the parts and reassemble. All right, so another coat of LPS3 primarily and a lot of the surfaces that are beneath the wood, especially on this barreled assembly. We could probably get away with putting some LPS3 inside the bore if we wanted to. If you are going to use LPS3 on any firearm, make sure that you go light, and just bear in mind if you're going to use a lot of LPS3 on a given firearm, you are going to need to remove a good bit of that before you shoot it again, because it can build up a little bit. All right, so we're going to place this barrel back on here. I'll get that other tightened up here in a moment. That thing sits in there such a particular little way here. There it is. We just needed lightning. Okay. Now before, we were getting definitely some residue and grime working its way into the action that was causing the action to have a little bit of stickiness when we're going to shut it. Nice and smooth. Maybe just a touch of grease on some of these lockup points just to help make it a little bit smoother would be probably merited. Hammers work. That's basically how you take care of your black powder guns, guys. I mean, whether it's a front stuffer, muzzle loader, cartridge, breech loaded, doesn't matter what you're running. This is how I care for my black powder firearms. I'm not saying that my way is, you know, better than anybody else. I'm just trying to share a little bit of what I do to clean black powder. We're going to get this sling back on here. This thing was a bit of a bear to remove. Still kind of new. That's pretty much what I do in a nutshell, guys. The thing about black powder is this stuff has to be done every single time that you take the gun out to shoot it. So it becomes certainly a discipline that you have to adhere to. Black powder is not like other types of shooting disciplines. You have to immediately make sure that you clean these things after you use them, and they'll provide a lifetime of service. So hopefully this helps some of you guys. We hope that you enjoy these videos. We hope you find them useful. If there's anything else you want to see, let me know. If you found this video really informative and useful, consider donating a few bucks on Patreon to help us out, or purchasing a man can. Guys, all those funds that we earn from those go right back into producing this content for y'all. So if you like it, consider helping us out. For those of you that do donate, thank you very much for your support. You guys are great. Until next time, we've got many more reloading and gunsmithing videos on the way. We hope you guys found this fun and informative. We'll probably end up doing a separate video on cleaning a front stuffing muzzle loader, so stay tuned for that. Until then, you guys have a good day. See you next time.